Hello everyone and welcome to day 3 of Poketober, and we are going very Halloween themed today because I am going to tell you the tragic and twisted story of Mimikyu, who, as some of you might know, is my favourite Pokemon. So, when people think of twisted Pokemon, Mimikyu is usually the one at the forefront of their mind. Despite being a fan favourite, Mimikyu is often considered one of the loneliest stories in Pokemon, and that really gets to my heart. I think that's probably why he's actually so popular. He represents something that's an inbuilt fear that we all have, whether a person, a Pokemon, or an anime character, we all dread the idea of being unloved and alone. Now, this is going to be a bit of a dark story, but it does have a happy ending, unlike some of the other ghost-type Pokemon in the series. But for now, we are just focusing on Mimi, because Mimi is the absolute best, and it's going to be quite a long conversation. So let me first tell you what Mimikyu is. Mimikyu is a ghost-type Pokemon who got very lonely and started wearing costumes, but at his core he is something called a yokai, or at least he's inspired by a yokai. Yokai are Japanese spirits. They're often mistakenly compared to demons. They're actually neutral and quite misunderstood. Some of them are naughty, some of them are downright dangerous, but a yokai is more of a spirit than a demon because they do have the free will to go either way, so they're not inherently bad. But they are often associated with bad things and mischief. So they're eerie and intriguing, just like Mimi. And he's often talked about in context of these because he was inspired by them. Just on a side note, Mimikyu'S have a 50-50 chance of being male or female. I am going to be saying male just because that's what I picked for my plushie, so I always see Mimikyu as a boy, but they could be either. Unlike some Pokemon which have different stats or they can change genders. So let's talk about the beginning of Mimikyu's life. So Mimikyu began his life as a lonely little creature and he craved affection. But it was more than that. He was desperate for love of any kind. And that's a feeling that resonates with a lot of us, and one of them that hits particularly hard for those of us that have been bullied or rejected or made to feel isolated, which, I mean, we can both relate to here at Glitch. We've been through things, and I'm sure you or someone you know can relate to that, and hopefully you can relate to the happy ending that comes at Mimikyu's story after that as well. So a lot of people think that Mimikyu is a knockoff of Pikachu, and that he's capitalizing on the popularity of, that signature Pokemon. And in a sad way, he kind of is. His story defines this more than the bottom line of profit for the company. But Mimikyu doesn't actually look anything like Pikachu. Now, it hasn't yet been confirmed what he does look like under his costume, but he wears a handmade and battered looking Pika costume in a bid to be wanted because he saw that popularity, and obviously it's most commonly Pikachu, a little bit of a fourth wall break there, and he wanted that. There are examples in the anime actually of alternative outfits for him, but none that he wants to stick with, and there's also a lot of fan art, and yeah, not anything official other than the Pika outfit that we managed to find as merchandise. But there are official accessories for Mimikyu in the shop game, and in Build-A-Bear lines, it seems like he could adapt and change costume. We know he can at least get out of his costume because of one of the episodes. So, in episode 38 of Sun and Moon, it's called Mimikyu Unmasked. Mimikyu's outfit does get badly torn up, and we don't get to see much, but obviously Jessie does, and when she offers Mimikyu a few other outfits, he outright refuses, and he has a tiny little tantrum, and he's getting really upset, and it's a really heartbreaking moment. Some people think it's because he sees Pikachu as his only hope, and clings to that as a symbol of hope for friendship, even though at that point he has what he's been craving because he has Jesse James, Meowth, and the other Team Rocket Pokemon. If it is true, though, that he was just rejecting outfits rather than refusing to take his off, it means he can actually change, he just doesn't want to. So, as we saw, Mimikyu picked Pikachu because he saw how popular the little electric mouse was, apart from with our friend Will, who can't stand Pikachu. And he made his outfit in an effort to make friends the same way as Pikachus do. So it's really, really heartbreaking, but he feels like he'll only be loved by pretending to be a different Pokemon. But you can actually see another innocent side of it with the childlike artworks of the costume. The childlike look of it is a sad symbol of having to do things without help. You've got those crayon squiggle eyes, because a lot of people think the eyes on what we're going to call the Pikachu head are Mimikyu's, but if you've seen the anime, they're not. There are two dots on his body, which originally reminded me of Mario mushrooms when I first saw him. But yeah, those are his eyes, and you'll see them change colour. They could be purple or gold, depending. So the costume has that kind of vibe of a kid wearing a sheet at Halloween and wandering alone because no one in their home kind of cares enough for them that like they'd let them have the Halloween costume they want. They don't really have time for them. And it's one of those simple joys we kind of take for granted. Like, a lot of people have been trick-or-treating. I don't think it's as popular in recent years, but dress-up's fun, and, to do that you've got to have someone to support you. So the crumpled ear and the crayon-scribbled eyes show, his desperate effort and that he hasn't got support. And that makes me quite emotional. The thing is, though, in Pokemon Sleep, it suggests that the copying actually goes beyond the outfit, and it notes in the text that Mimikyu copies many of Pikachu's mannerisms. They're so ingrained that the two actually sleep in similar ways. You can see the position they lie in, and it's not something that a Mimikyu would do naturally. Obviously, this is a costume. He wouldn't fall naturally into that position, but he's obviously got so into the habit trying to be someone else, but that's what he does. And the fact he has a costume actually links back to the yokai lore as well. A lot of them wear disguises to be accepted. Whether this is because they're searching for love or whether it's because they're about to pull a prank and they want to get to the right spot unseen. So this is a big part of the inspiration for Mimikyu. There's a couple, actually, that stand out as being quite similar, though if you do your yokai research, there are so many in Japan. So we have Yurai, for example. They're spirits that are trapped in this lonely limbo between life and death, and they dress in funeral kimonos to cover what they are. They're a symbol of pain and longing, just like Mimikyu. And we also have ones that you may have more commonly heard of. Kitsune, Tanuki, and Bakaneko all wear disguises since they're shapeshifters, becoming something more physically desirable to be accepted. Again, the motives change, but there's a lot of costume wear and fitting in that comes with the lore of yokai and matches up to Mimikyu. So as I said, it hasn't actually been revealed entirely what Mimikyu looks like, but we have had glimpses in the anime, and there's a lot of really cool fan arts of what could be under there. So there are the black eye holes we spoke about on the body of the costume, but Mimikyu actually has purple eyes, and they're believed to be quite big. We know from various angry scenes that they do turn yellow when enraged and diamond shape. But the glow's quite large, and that might actually be a size thing rather than a power level thing. But yeah, he has purple eyes. In my head, I'm imagining something a bit like Sableye, but not as 3D. So perhaps something a little more ethereal and spooky. But underneath the costume, you can actually get a peek at Mimikyu's body in the anime and in the merchandise, though obviously be careful because if you see its real form, you could get very ill. It's black, basically, or at least part of it is, because we don't know what else is under there. A lot of people thought this was a shadow underneath the Mimikyu, which would make sense, until it was later shown in the anime that he actually slips out, I don't know if you call it a foot, it's like a claw-like appendage, and that's also black, so it's a fairly safe bet that he is a black Pokemon, and it makes sense, given that other ghost-type Pokemon have claws, like Haunter, Bayonet, and Dusknoir, very similar. Oh, on top of that, Bayonet and Dusknoir both have links to torn material, which, that kind of forms a pattern with Mimikyu as well, with his probably recycled costume pieces. Yeah, black is a common colour in ghost-type Pokemon. There are a lot of others, but we have Duskull, Giratina's altered and origin forms, Spiritomb, Ghastly, and again there's a lot of purple there as well, which obviously the purple eyes with Mimikyu. So we're thinking black and purple. But yeah, even though there's a lot of similarities, there's a big difference. Mimikyu's form is meant to be so devastatingly frightening that seeing it causes illness or in rare cases, death. We actually see this in Sun and Moon episode 3? Yeah, 3, where Meowth takes a sneaky peek under Mimikyu's costume and nearly dies from the shock. Literal form of curiosity killed the cat, almost. And if we go by the game lore in Pokemon Sun's Pokedex, it almost confirms this, because it has this potentially horrifying line that says, "A scholar who saw what was under its rag was overwhelmed by terror and died from the shock." But, that could be an urban legend, because when we're talking about what a Mimikyu is, it's a lonely singular Pokemon, but obviously it's not a legendary, so there are multiple Mimikyu's. So maybe that happened with the first one. I don't know. It's one of those things with Pokemon lore. Things like with Cubone, not all of them had the same origin story, I'm sure. Very, very sad story about losing its mother and then wearing the skull, but I'm pretty sure that isn't just a generic cycle that always happens with Cubone, much as I'm in the same view with Mimikyu. So, Mimikyu may replicate Pikachu, but Sun and Moon episode 3, Loading the Dex, reveals his mimicry isn't actually flattery. Mimikyu initially hates Pikachu, like Will, and everything he represents. In a rage, he lunges right at him, Ash's Pikachu that is, the first time they meet, and on a few other meetings actually. And a lot of people say that this is aggression, but I feel this comes across as hurt more than anger, actually. I think Mimikyu is overwhelmed at this point, because if you notice, once he's been adopted into the Team Rocket family, he doesn't really care that much about Pikachu being around more than any of the other team members would. But it's really sad that Mimikyu's this way, and there's this painful irony in his type that, it hits home all the more. He's a ghost and fairy dual typing, which makes Mimikyu a really rare being, and most fairy type Pokemon want to share happiness with the world, but Mimikyu also craves it for himself. So this reversal is like a reflection, which is what Mimikyu tries to be. So it's a mimicry and a really, really cruel mockery. Also quite sad, probably on an accidental note, that fairy types were discontinued, and obviously that's the side that wanted to give love, so it's almost like he gave himself to Team Rocket and decided he wanted to receive all the love. But I think you can tell there's a real connection with Jesse there. Oh, okay. Daz has just told me it's only been discontinued in the TCG, but still, point still stands, I guess. Yeah, because Mimikyu is a psychic type in Pocket, which, I struggle to keep up with how many types there are because I'm only just learning with TCG. So do forgive any mistakes, and please comment them down below so I can learn. I like to learn lots and lots about Pokemon, especially when it links to Mimikyu. But I did want to talk about one of Mimikyu's moves, which adds a layer of symbolism to this Pokemon. Mimikyu can use Disguise as an ability or move, depending whether you go by the TCG game or the anime. So this lets it absorb one attack without damage, amplifying how he uses his rag and scribble costume as a shield against things that hurt him, just in the way that he uses it as a shield against the things that life tries to throw at him that do hurt him. But it's not always effective. So Mimikyu is also the only Pokemon capable of using the Z move Let's Snuggle Forever, which sounds adorable, but yeah, let's discuss.
First thought that was a made-up move when I first heard of it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, to be fair. Like, Let's Snuggle Together seems like something we'd put on a fake Pokemon card to gift each other on Valentine's. I don't think you want this gift on Valentine's, though. So, Let's Snuggle Together sees Mimikyu latch onto an opponent with dark energy before tossing them away and we presume killing them. But it's not all heartache. For this Pokemon, Mimikyu does find some acceptance. Like I said, when joining Team Rocket, Jessie didn't try to change Mimikyu, and she just accepted him as he was. And given that she's presented him costumes and things, his effects obviously don't scare her or make her ill or shocked, so maybe it's one of those situations where if you can see the real him and love him, he's not gonna accidentally defend against you. And now I'm getting Shion vibes from Tales of Arise, the accidental thoughts. But not only that, Jessie wasn't just his friend, she loves him. Just as she did Meowth, who's also a very sad backstory Pokemon, but that is for another day. So by the time we reach episode 146 of Sun and Moon, which is called Thank You Alola, the journey continues, Mimikyu actually sees his reflection during a battle. Now, we don't get to see this, unfortunately, because I would love to see that, even though it probably result in a lot of creepypastas with, people having problems through the screen, like the old Lavender Town music issue. But yeah, he becomes so overwhelmed that he stops fighting and he just chooses to walk away. And he's alone, and it just breaks my heart. Ash offers him support and he rejects him, and the little costume head's even sagging. And obviously, body language wise, this is sad, but it also shows that he just doesn't have the energy to sustain the weight of not being him anymore. And I'm getting emotional. But it may seem dark, but it's actually a moment of self acceptance. So it is very, very bittersweet, and it is beautiful, even though he leaves and cries. But it's actually Meowth that comes to his side. And this moment is so stunning because as he cries at the end of a journey of self-loathing and hurt, he inevitably starts a new chapter as a beloved Pokemon and family member. And the closing image is a serene one with Mimikyu peacefully basking in the company of Stuffle and how do you say it? Is it Marnie? It is Marnie, isn't it?
Marnie.
But yeah, it's very sweet, and he's all cuddled up there. Like if you've ever seen pictures of an adopted animal, the first day they get a full-time home, forever home. It's so sweet. But yeah, Mimikyu is also described as constantly crying, and he feels very cold in the Ultra Sun Pokedex, and that may be the case physically, but there's definitely a warmth in the end of Mimikyu's story, and I would happily freeze off all of my fingers to give this little one a hug. But yeah, Mimikyu's story, it's sad, it's dark, it's lonely, but it ends happy. And it takes him a long time, but eventually he finds his people. And we can all do that. It's something that I kind of wanted to reflect on. Maybe the philosophy of a Mimikyu. We really struggled in school. We had some really cool people around us, but I know, especially in primary school, Dad struggled, and in secondary school when I was going through a lot, we felt very, very isolated, and we kind of retreated into games and anime, and that's what led us to make this channel. And then we eventually found each other and our people, but it took a long, long time. It wasn't until after university for me. So if you are feeling a bit like a battered Mimikyu, there is a Team Rocket out there somewhere. It may take a while to find them, but you will do. And yeah, on that motivational Mimikyu message, I'm going to sign off. Daz will be with you for some more Pokemon lore at another time this month. Obviously, every day, as a thanks to our followers, we are doing a Pokemon content video every day in October for Poketober. And we will see you then. This is Rox and Daz signing out. Peace.